My next guest is one prominent Democrat who is urging calm, predicting in the New York Times last week that come November, he believes Biden will beat Trump. Simon Rosenberg is a Democratic strategist who has been involved in presidential campaigns for the last 36 years and is the perfect source on this tonight. Simon, obviously, we all know polling is just a snapshot, but with polling showing this concern among these independent voters over Biden's age, over other issues, what does it tell you about where you think the race stands today?
Yeah, listen, my basic take on where things are today is that Joe Biden is a good president. The country is better off. The Democratic Party is strong, winning elections, raising tons of money. And they have Trump, who is the ugliest political thing that any of us have ever seen. You just spent the first 30 minutes of this show talking about all of his troubles. And so I think that as someone who's been in elections for a long time, I think there is a quiet confidence in the Democratic Party. And the reason why is that we always felt that once the general election began, and voters started tuning in, that you were going to see Biden's numbers come up, and they have. He's clearly in a better place today than he was a month ago. He's now leading in more polls than Trump is in national polls, and so I think we feel good about where we are. But we also know we have an awful lot of work to do. But if we do the work, we should be able to win this election.
Well, how do you know which polls you trust? If you think the ones that show that he's behind aren't accurate, but how do you know you trust the ones that show maybe he's doing better in certain areas?
Yeah, no, look, I think to be fair, right, Trump was winning the election or ahead a few months ago. He's not anymore. There have now been 19 polls taken in the last few weeks that have Biden ahead in this election. Yeah, there are some polls that have been done in the states showing that Trump is ahead. But I think on balance, it's clear now that Biden's gained a point or two in recent weeks. The election is changing. It's improving for us. You're seeing similar movements in what's called the congressional generic, where things are getting better there. The Senate polls for us are holding all across the country. And one of the evidence of strength of the party is how much money we're raising. And the fact that we've been winning elections again and again and again and all across the country since Dobbs happened in the spring of 2022. We've had an extraordinary track record. Remember, Kaitlin, usually a party out of power loses ground in a midterm and in the off-year elections. We've actually gained ground. We've done something really dramatic. And I think it's because the most powerful force in our politics today isn't disappointment in Joe Biden. It's fear and opposition to MAGA. It's what's been driving our politics since 2018. We had good elections in 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2023. And I think we're going to have another good one in 2024.
Well, one argument that I've noticed that you've been making that is interesting is kind of about the two parties themselves, not necessarily about the candidates, but the Democratic Party versus the GOP. And I was kind of thinking about this today as we're watching, Speaker Mike Johnson is in trouble right now as a result of his own party. Today, Trump is attacking a prominent Republican senator and huge ally of his. But you kind of have made this argument that the unison and the differences in those in the two parties will have a big impact.
Yeah, this stuff matters. Part of what I do and other political analysts do is we don't just look at polling. You have all these other things to look at, right? The strength of the candidate, the arguments that they're making, how much money are they raising, the track record, right? But also about party unity and whether the team is together. The Democratic team is really together right now. You've just seen in the last 10 days, Biden do events with Obama and Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and there was no serious opposition to Biden in the primary. On the other side, Trump is facing an unprecedented rebellion in the Republican Party from people like Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney, serious people, right, who've said they're not going to be voting for Donald Trump. We saw what happened with the Haley voters in the polling in these early states, where a big chunk of Haley voters said they were not going to vote for Donald Trump, that they would be open to voting for Biden. And I think the Republican Party has splintered. I think something broke inside the Republican Party after Dobbs in the spring of 2022, where even for a big chunk of Republicans, this was just a bridge too far. It was too much. And I think you're seeing now a Democratic Party that's unified, strong, winning elections, raising lots of money, and a Republican Party that is an unprecedented dumpster fire, in my view, right now.
Unprecedented dumpster fire? Is that your assessment of the Republican Party?
Yeah.
Well, okay, but President Biden does have some challenges of his. And I wonder when you look at this, because I should know, you are someone who predicted that the midterms would go better for Democrats than they did, something that I know that you are proud of. But on the biggest issues facing Biden, whether it's what's happening in Gaza, his age, RFK Jr., what do you think is his biggest challenge right now?
Well, I think on his age, I think he did a lot to assuage people's concerns by his incredibly strong performance in the State of the Union. And I think that we have to recognize about his age is that we as Democrats have to say that age is not just a liability for Biden. It's also an asset. It's one of the reasons he's been such a successful president. I mean, maybe during a time of enormous challenge, having the most experienced guy to ever go into the White House was a blessing for the country and not a challenge for us. And so I think we've got to take the age issue head on. And on the rest of the issues, have me back, Kaitlin, and we can cover them more in depth. But thank you for letting me be here tonight.
We certainly will. I mean, they're not going away. And obviously,
Yep.
RFK Jr. certainly isn't. We've talked about that a lot. Obviously, what's happening in Gaza. Simon Rosenberg, great to have you on The Source tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Kaitlin.